Well, I'm not sure how we're going to sum that one up, folks, but we're going to do our best. End of the day here, Sunday, the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear just wrapped up on a day where we saw rain, we saw Will Power make 7 pit stops and still finish inside the top 10. We saw some crazy strategy, which of course we saw Scott Dixon come away on top in. I mean, this is a classic Scott Dixon race in every single way, going off strategy early and ultimately nursing the fuel to make it to the end. So many stories to get to out of this race. I guess we'll start with Scott Dixon, who was not really a contender for most of this race, elected to make a pit stop earlier than most, and then got the yellows that he needed to nurse that fuel all the way to the finish. But he had a challenge at the end. Marcus Ericsson was coming fast. It was super, super close. One more lap and we would have had a totally different story. I guess what Marcus Ericsson needed was a red flag. That's about the only thing this race didn't have. And of course, all of Marcus's wins in his entire career, there's been at least one red flag. So I suppose that's what the magic elixir would have been for Marcus. Nevertheless, though, a runner-up for him on a weekend where he has said several times he just wants to hit reset on this entire season. It's been a miserable start to the year. Came into this weekend like 19th in points, over 100 points out of the championship lead. Not sure that's really ever going to be part of the equation the rest of the way, but at least now some wind in his sails, some momentum as well, looking ahead to Road America next week. Marcus Armstrong, breakout performance from him, his first podium finish, mirroring his Kiwi teammate Scott Dixon with that same fuel save strategy. Didn't quite have the same pace as Scott, didn't quite get the same mileage either, but still did enough to end up on top of the podium to make it 2 Marcuses on the podium in this IndyCar race here today. Other stories, man, where do we even go for this one? I mentioned Will Power. He was part of a massive pileup in turn 1, lap 1 that saw the bulk of the field get kind of stuck at one point or another and get shuffled to the back. The one lane just got totally backed up and it looked like his race was run, but 7 pit stops later and he finds himself inside the top 10. Alexander Rossi had a decent day. He ended up finishing in 5th. Some that had bad days, your reigning Indy 500 champion Joseph Newgarden. This was a day to forget. Trouble in the pits, trouble on track. Ultimately, he was never a factor. Same story as well for Alex Palou, the defending race winner here in Detroit. Got caught out in some other people's issues and simply was not a factor at the end of the race. Christian Lundgaard looked like he was going to overcome some disappointment on the pit lane and a penalty at one point. He was on that fuel save strategy. Ultimately, he had to bail and pit on the final lap. That dropped him outside the top 10, and I think he finished in 11th today. And no luck at all either for the pole sitter Colton Herta. Led the early stages of the race, looked like it might have been his day. Unfortunately, when he went off strategy, or I guess others really were the ones that went off strategy, that shuffled him back. He was trying to carve his way back to the front, got a bit aggressive. Might have been the damp track that played a role in it as well, but he locked up, went into a runoff, dropped way down the order, might have even lost a lap at one point. It never was a factor again. One guy, though, who's going to be super thrilled, as you'll hear in a moment, to survive the chaos and survive a weekend where really the pace wasn't totally there, Felix Rosenqvist, able to come home 8th despite an up and down day. He was up, he was down, he was back, he was forward. It was wild, that's for sure. Let's hear from Felix Rosenqvist on how his day played out, coming home 8th for Meyer Shank Racing. Somehow, someway, at the end of 100 crazy laps here on the streets of Detroit, Felix Rosenqvist came home 8th place. You started kind of mid-pack, but you dropped back early. Was it a cut tire or something like that brought you back?
Yeah, we had a great start. I was pretty excited because I think we got probably 5-6 cars on the first lap, and then I just lost pressure, so came in straight away. No, actually we stayed a lap, then came in, and then we're all the way back. We went on the greens, which were great. We were back like P17 or something, flying on the greens, and then they just went to pieces. Massive dag. And then we had to pit early, which kind of went like, it wasn't good at the time, but it kind of put us on the right strategy. It went a bit off sync, and after everything was kind of said and done, we were like P11 or something on with the same strategy as everyone else. And then got a couple more cars, so that was great. We got some damage on the rear, and we had rain tires on for a while. Like, yeah, I'm pretty impressed. We ended up finishing 8th.
It's right. You almost forget that there was a brief minute there where we thought rain tires might be the play. Most of the field went to them and then pretty quickly abandoned them.
Yeah, it was weird because in the car with the aerosmith, you just can't see anything, especially on tracks like this when you have like concrete dust and stuff. Like I couldn't see anything, so I think that enhanced the feeling of wanting the wets, and it was also super slippery obviously for a while, but yeah, I mean, I think everyone almost did it, so I saw a couple of cars and slicks, but yeah, it was a wild race, man. I'm happy with the finish, but also a bit bummed with our pace. We just couldn't really fight all weekend. I mean, we could fight in the top 10, but we want to be better than that, so yeah, just kind of a scrap for as long as the pace went this weekend.
Does it kind of make you scratch your head a bit when you consider the technical alliance with Andretti Global? Those cars all look really, really quick here on the street course, and you and Elio both weren't quite on that same pace.
Yeah, for whatever reason we weren't able to make it work, and we've been like a good second off all weekend, so yeah, tough, but I'm kind of happy it's over with. We have a year to think about it and come back stronger.
Last couple of things, you had Elio as your teammate, and it had to be strange this weekend because he was pretty quiet, right? He totally lost his voice yesterday. What is a quiet Elio Castroneves like?
I mean, luckily he's very good at articulating with his hands. Like, he's Brazilian, so I feel like he's already talking that. You can almost see what he's saying, but I feel bad for him because if a Swede loses his voice, it's kind of like, nice, you know, like, oh, we don't have to talk. We don't normally talk a lot, but for him it's like a massive handicap, so it got a bit better today, I think.
Last thing for you, I looked at the stats right before the end of the race. I think maybe you got one more spot after that as well, but I think you had the most passes of anyone, something like 26 or 27 in the race today. I know you wanted to finish better, but the racer in you has to think that was pretty fun.
It was, and I feel like it was a smart race from me and at the pit wall. We just kind of took it easy. Like my sort of view on it before going into the race was I'm not going to be on the outside in turn 3 ever. I'm going to be inside, and never really be like fighting with anyone going into it, and that really paid off because a bunch of times there were just people like sliding out and going on top of each other, and we were just able to cruise by. So yeah, very controlled drive, and I think days like this when you don't have the pace, so you can't really do much, you kind of have to change your approach a little bit. So yeah, very well executed.
Wild day today, and next week we head to Road America. That's where this guy got his first and so far only career win. That could change though in 7 days. Thanks, Felix.
Subscribe to Racer and save 24% off the cover price. You'll get the print and digital editions with an issue archive through 2012. Visit info.racer.com to learn more.